In a speech lasting nearly an hour on the first night of the Democratic National Convention, President Joe Biden defends his record as he passes the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris. And protesters take to the streets outside the DNC, calling for an end to the war in Gaza. The Morning Rundown starts now.
From the Straight Arrow News Studio, bringing the stories that matter to you from across the United States and around the world. This is the Morning Rundown.
Today is Tuesday, August 20th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kara Rucker. It's now day 2 of the Democratic National Convention, and you can expect to see former President Barack Obama be among those giving speeches tonight to rally up the Democratic base ahead of Vice President Kamala Harris officially accepting her party's nomination for president. A quick recap of what we saw on day 1 at the DNC. Harris and her running mate Tim Walz were in the building last night. And while this convention is one largely for Kamala, day 1 belonged to President Biden, as the party paid tribute to his decades-long political career. The crowd chanting in support of the president, with his wife Jill Biden in the audience, and Biden taking the moment to thank his supporters.
I made a lot of mistakes in my career, but I gave my best to you. For 50 years, like many of you, I've given my heart and soul to our nation. It's been the honor of my lifetime to serve as your president.
Biden again offered his full support for his VP to take over the reins, as did other speakers in the first day at the DNC, including former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
With faith in each other and joy in our hearts, let's send Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to the White House.
While Harris was at the DNC on Monday, today she and Walz will be back on the campaign trail in Wisconsin. That's also where the Republican vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, will be today, while former President Donald Trump continues his blitz across battleground states, visiting Pennsylvania yesterday and heading to Michigan for a rally this afternoon. While the Democratic Party rallied in unison inside Chicago's United Center, it was a different story outside. Protesters broke through a fence set up by police near the site of the DNC as thousands took to the streets to protest the war in Gaza. As the larger group marched, a few dozen broke away and tore down pieces of the security fence. They chanted, "End the occupation now," and then "The whole world is watching," just as anti-Vietnam War protesters did during the infamous 1968 convention in Chicago, when police clashed with protesters on live television. On Monday, police in riot gear formed a wall and arrested at least 4 people. Large protests are expected to continue over the next several days outside the DNC. The U.S. government has confirmed Iran was behind a recent hack on the Trump campaign, as well as an attempt to hack the Biden and Harris campaigns. They say it was part of the country's plans to interfere with the 2024 presidential election. The FBI briefed former President Donald Trump on their preliminary findings after news organizations reported receiving documents believed to have come from an account belonging to a senior Trump campaign official that were actually from a hacker. And Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign said the hackers were unsuccessful in their attempts against the Biden-Harris campaign. New this morning, Israel says it has recovered the bodies of 6 hostages taken by Hamas during the October 7th terror attack. The Israeli Defense Forces and Israel's security agency saying in a joint statement the bodies were retrieved during an overnight military operation. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says hearts are aching over the terrible loss and thanked those involved in the recovery efforts. This comes as Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Israel has accepted a proposal to bridge differences that's preventing a temporary ceasefire and the release of an unknown number of hostages. Now the U.S. and the other world leaders helping to mediate the negotiation talks are urging Hamas to accept their proposal. Today, Blinken will be leaving Israel and traveling to Egypt and Qatar, where Hamas has a political office. It's unclear if Hamas will sign off. One of their stipulations has been a permanent truce, not a temporary pause in fighting. The high-stakes talks come as fears rise that the war could escalate into a bigger regional conflict, potentially an attack on Israel led by Iran and its proxy groups. Former New York Congressman George Santos has pleaded guilty to wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. He's agreed to pay over $370,000 in restitution and could spend at least 6 years in prison for stealing from donors and using campaign contributions to pay for personal expenses. The plea comes as his federal fraud case, which led to his expulsion from Congress, was just weeks away from going to trial. He's set to be sentenced in February. Finally this morning, like any good TV show or movie, the saga of the sale of Paramount has a last-second plot twist. According to reports, billionaire media mogul Edgar Bronfman Jr., the former head of Warner Music Group, has submitted an offer of $4.3 billion to take control of Paramount Global, the parent company of CBS, MTV, and Paramount Pictures. It was last month when Skydance Media entered a deal to purchase the media conglomerate for $8 billion, but that deal came with a catch, a 45-day window where Paramount could field other offers. And Bronfman has entered the fray, just as that deadline was about to expire on Wednesday. Now Paramount has the option to extend that period, and if it does, that would be a sign that Paramount is seriously thinking about Bronfman's offer. So as they say in showbiz, the plot thickens. Stay tuned. These are your top stories for this Tuesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Until then, I'm Kara Rucker. Have a great day.